If you could play one game forever, what would it be? Would it be an MMO? Would it be an FPS? Would it be a MOBA? Would it be Battle Royale? Whatever the case, the idea that you would play a game for an extended period of time calls up a lot of interesting implications. Some positive, some negative, but there's actually quite a lot of reasons why somebody would play a game for a long period of time, and we thought it was worth some time to look at the different motivations behind this player mindset. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx we ask the question, how can someone play one game for years? When somebody says, I've played that game for years, it might make you think about one of two things: dedication or addiction. We often talk about games in terms of addicting as if it is a positive thing. And while it is true that that kind of loop that keeps you coming back is always a good thing when it doesn't have a negative effect on your life, it also reflects certain business trends that have been affecting games. We've talked about the fact that single player has had less of a prominent spotlight in the world of gaming compared to the live service model for a little while. And there's a very simple answer in why people might be playing games for longer periods of time in looking at just this. More games are meant to be played indefinitely. This is hardly the only reason somebody might do this, on account it's hardly the only type of game someone might do this in. But this genre of games has normalized the idea of playing a game for a period of time far beyond what a lot of other games have. It's normal to get a bunch of people together every weekend and play Fortnite. It's normal for all of those people to play Fortnite alone for a while during the week. And I'm not casting this as a positive or a negative. I'm simply saying the world of today is a little bit different than the world of yesterday. However, in the world of yesterday, and even really the world of today still, just in different social circles, there are people that played games for just as long. Single-player games, games with stories and worlds. There are JRPGs from the 1990s for the Super Nintendo that you could literally play for 250 hours plus without seeing the entire game. There's countless amounts of grinding, but also lots of different content. Keep in mind, the need for different looking art was a bit lower, and you could use various tile sets and color palette swaps to make an entirely new area that looked, for all intents and purposes, different enough, and the player would have to explore it all the same if they wanted to see 100% of the game. For instance, a lot of my favorite games of all time from Squaresoft in the 1990s, whether it be Final Fantasy VI, VII, or entries to their various other series, were beatable in 60, 70, maybe 80 hours. But you could end up playing them for much longer than that. I know the sheer amount of time I put into Final Fantasy VII to get all of the master materia, all of the characters' ultimate weapons, seeing every tiny bit of the story, finding lore, and just wasting time flying around in the airship. I spent several hundred hours playing that game. You could say I was addicted, or you could say I was immersed. I don't really know, to be completely honest with you. I know that the world in that game, the characters, the events, was very interesting to me. There wasn't anything I didn't want to see in the game. I didn't care if it was directly important to everything. I thought it was interesting nonetheless. And it's obviously not just JRPGs. We have so many games that are narrative-based that give you tons and tons and tons of content that you can sift through. Games that give you various narrative branches based on choices you make, for instance, which often begs the completionist to play through multiple times. Then there's games like that without stories that are more of the simulation nature, like a SimCity or a Civilization, that there's plenty of people who have played indefinitely simply because it's an interesting mental exercise. In Japan, there was a story about a 99-year-old woman who had played the Nintendo Entertainment System for 26 years to keep her mind sharp. Her game of choice was Bomberman. Now, Bomberman is not by any means the most difficult or evolving game, especially the more early versions of Bomberman, but it is a game that asks you to use your reflexes and make quick decisions. One can imagine that would be actually a pretty good thing for an elderly person trying to keep their brain sharp. That person certainly isn't addicted or dedicated, they're simply exercising. Still, other people have jobs or children where they're busy with a lot of their time and can't play games all the time like a lot of us like to, and therefore pick one game that they spend time getting through and maybe just continually play that game once they've beaten it on their free time. It may be that their alternate world just makes more sense to have it in Fallout 4 or some other open world, or just a narrative that they enjoy playing through multiple times because it takes them a few weeks. Over a period of years, you could really rack up the hours playing a game that isn't necessarily even designed to be played more than 10. It's definitely harder to get sick of a game when you're not playing it 24/7, and that slow burn type of racking up of hours is probably easy not to even notice as it passes by. This is your reward for spending all of your time doing some kind of grinding in real life, so to speak. If you have a stressful job, video games are a great way to chill out. It's not just narrative games, not just open world games, it could just be Sudoku or Minecraft. But forget time constraints and even the mechanics of the game itself. Maybe you have internet friends or a community that you have gotten engrossed in that are associated with one game. In a video about things that only Xbox 360 owners might remember, we talked about what happens when you lose contact with somebody you used to play a specific game with, and it kind of sucks because maybe they were your friend, but that was the thing that they did that connected you to them, and once they stopped doing it, there just wasn't any way to talk to them. There's a reason why people spend large periods of time in a game that they maybe have done everything in, just to be around people that they like and share some kind of kinship and interest in. Or maybe the community itself is one that has been back and forth with the game developer, and over time they've made the game a lot better. Maybe a certain space exploration game that started off pretty bad but got pretty good, and people feel a sense of obligation for having pushed the developers to make the game into what they originally promised it to be, or perhaps just better than it ever was. Or we can talk about playing and buying FIFA every year. The learning curve is minimal each new year because they make small iterative changes. It's just easier to win, competitively speaking, when it's easier to understand the game year after year. It's not technically the same game, but it's the same game. And then, like I've mentioned fairly lightly, because I don't want to tread too deeply into this, there's also addiction. Some games are very much a lifestyle of their own. League of Legends and Fortnite come to mind. And sometimes the line between a lifestyle and not knowing when to stop, or not being able to stop, blurs. If I had a dime for every internet post I've read about somebody talking about how they stopped talking to their quote-unquote real-life friends and started participating in a hierarchy based entirely around their ranking in a game, and how important it became to them, how singular it became to them. You can get addicted to just about anything in this world, whether it be through a psychological addiction or an actual chemical addiction. It varies from person to person. I won't try to break down what addiction is for you, but I will say that people who are dealing with something like that shouldn't just be told to stop. In the case of video game addiction, there's often something else in their life that there is either too much of or too little of, and gaming becomes the replacement or the distraction. And I don't pretend to have a criticism for people who are addicted to a game, but I will say there's no shame in getting help. It may just be that you end up finding a better way to enjoy games that's a little healthier, but if it's a coping mechanism, I don't want to take that from you either. Have you played one video game for years and years, and if you have played other games and just kept coming back to one, that still counts? What has it been that has brought you back? It never hurts to learn about each other, and the more we know about everyone's experience, the more informed we can be about our own choices. And I don't think that's ever hurt anyone. Leave us a comment and tell us what you think. If you like this video, click the like button. And if you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.